Released into early access on May 12, 2023, 7-person indie dev Delta Video Games has created something pretty fun in Assault on Proxima. With 100% positive reviews, it would seem on the surface that Delta has created something pretty special here. Unfortunately, despite the high review score, there are only 16 reviewers at the time of editing this video, and some of them are possibly Smurf accounts. And while I generally enjoyed my time playing this game, there are definitely a few things that the developers need to be made aware of. And since 16 reviews is not enough of a sample pool to get a real feeling for what this game is all about, I've decided to do a review of this game despite it being a little on the fringe of my normal content, as I'm not sure if Assault on Proxima will classify as a boomer shooter. But hey, whatever, I want to talk about this game, so let's get right into it. Assault on Proxima is $9.99 on Steam, and I picked it up on sale when I was looking for something different to play. I am a sucker for bold and graphic looking games, and while the art style is simplistic with flat colors, it still caught my eye. After launching into the campaign, in a quick animated cutscene, we select our class: Assault, Soldier, Recon, Medic. We pick a primary weapon, a sidearm, equipment, and a perk. At first glance, there's no indication that the classes are any different. There are no passive abilities, no class abilities, no special weapons, or anything that indicates classes do anything in this game. Also, the indicators on what a perk or equipment does only shows up if you mouse over it, and I think it should be more obvious to the player as well. Maybe you can chalk all of this up to early access unfinished features and classes have not been fully implemented yet, but you would think a developer would not release a game even into early access without core features working. So this one is a big red flag for me. I mean, it could even be forgiven if lack of classes was communicated. After all, communication with your audience is key in these types of projects. Even a coming soon message in the class selection screen could be an acceptable way of communicating that things are being worked on and features are coming, in my opinion. Instead, I'm just going to assume that classes don't do anything and the developer is missing a key feature. Alright, so with my class not really mattering, I pick some weapons and I start to progress through the level. We are in a space station that has been taken over by Gakrux, and we must take it back. First impressions is that I still like the bold and black art style of everything, but the level feels a little flat and lifeless with not a lot of shadows. We need to get to point A while killing whatever is in our path. Enemies don't seem to be anything special yet, as they just charge and attack, or walk forward as they shoot. I really like the multiplayer kill feed in this single player level, as it's a unique concept that I have not seen in a game before, and it adds an interesting bit of flavor to the game. I'm sure it exists in other games, but I have not personally seen it before. It's a unique concept, but unfortunately there are the same names repeated over and over again. I would like to see the roster of names expanded upon with more randomization. I'm pretty sure I killed the great Bowflam of Seasop like 20 times in this game. Oh wow, enemies can kill you really fast in this game. After dying, I have to do the whole level over again. However, the entire level did not reset, but a few enemies did respawn. I shoot my way back through the hallways and make my way to the hangar, killing some more aliens as I go and secure point A, the dropship. Capturing the objective like this is another multiplayer concept that I have not seen before in a single player game. It would be really neat if I was being attacked by enemies here to make it more intense, but alas, I'm not. I leave the spaceport and I land on the planet below. At first glance at the second level, all I notice is how horribly dark this level is. Now, I understand that we're on a dark planet at night, and maybe the developer is trying to create that atmosphere here. I get it. But there has to be a balance between readability and what you're trying to go for. And in this case, readability is just out the window. In my opinion, the developer can still lighten things enough to see the enemies and still create that dark, moody atmosphere. That wasn't done here, and it made this first section more difficult than it needed to be. Enemies are not even seen before they're charging, attacking, and shooting. And to make this entire area more difficult, it would seem that enemies respawn rapidly here, making this section take much longer than it needed to. I ran out of ammo and had to go back, just to have more enemies respawn. Also, let's quickly touch on that. When out of ammo, the HUD shows you having a clip left, yet you can't access it. That seems like a bug or a mistake on the developer's part to me. So yeah, this beginning canyon area was difficult, needlessly difficult. It basically made the first level feel like a tutorial, and this level was actually the first real level in the game. And then I started to have a theory, and this is what I want you, the viewer, to keep in mind as I talk about this game for the rest of this review. With the enemy's quick time to kill, their rapid respawning, later enemies that you'll soon see being extreme bullet sponges, and the player's low amount of starting ammo, it made me feel like this game was not really balanced for one player alone, but instead for a co-op experience. After all, the Steam page does advertise that the game can be played with 4 people co-op, so keeping in mind my theory that this game is balanced to be co-op, let's continue with the review. After carving through the enemies of the first section and dying quite a few times, I finally came across an area where I had a panoramic view of the base below. This area made me instantly think how cool it would be if I had the ability to scan the area and mark my enemies. Maybe an ability for the recon class? Putting a little highlighted outline around the enemy's body after being scanned would be so useful in a level as dark as this one as well. So yeah, just a little food for thought for the developers if they happen to check this video out. I battled my way through more enemies until I got to the objective. At one point, I hit a random button and I dropped a medkit. Okay, cool. So that means that classes actually do something after all. So I paused the game to go into the settings to figure out what button I accidentally pressed was. And I'm killed by enemies. Okay, so pausing doesn't stop the game. So this strengthens my argument that the game was built primarily as a co-op experience, as pausing for one player normally doesn't really pause for the rest of the other players in co-op modes. But hey, despite being annoyed that I died and having to fight yet through more respawned enemies, it's cool to figure out that classes actually can drop things. This makes classes more valuable in this game. So that means that the assault can drop ammo, the recon and the soldier can drop grenades, and the medic will drop first aid. So if you are able to play this game co-op, that kind of explains the low level of ammo that you start with, because your teammates can drop it for you. So as a solo player, it makes sense to play as a medic so you can heal yourself. So again, in the off chance that the developers are actually watching this, please make it more obvious on the class selection that the classes actually do something. Please make it obvious to players that they can drop packs with ammo and health, etc. And if you add other abilities like the example I made of the recon scanning enemy players, please also include that as well. Once I got to the first boss, the theory that this game was balanced for co-op in mind and not single player was obvious. The boss was a walking bullet sponge to end all bullet sponges. We're not talking about just a single player that takes a lot of ammo bullet sponge. We're talking like full-on RPG raid boss bullet sponge. I had to reload my weapons countless times to bring this guy down. And on top of that, enemies were respawning all around him, so this made the task of killing him quite monumental as a solo player to get past this area. I tried multiple times to do this boss legit, and I just couldn't get past it. So, taking a page out of the Dark Souls handbook, I cheesed it. And as you'll soon find out, cheesing is going to become a theme for the rest of this review. And I can tell you exactly why. If I were a betting man, I would bet right now that this game is not balanced for a solo player at all. I doubt the developer had the forethought to change how much health enemies have or how much damage they do based upon how many players are playing the game. Now, I don't have a friend that has this game, so I haven't played the co-op and I can't tell you for sure. But I bet that the mechanics are the same whether you're just by yourself or with 3 other friends. And as a solo player, certain areas in this game are just practically impossible to get through without cheesing them. Between the extremely fast time to kill, the low amount of base ammo that you have, and not to mention the brutal runbacks in some situations with enemies respawning, you will do anything to not have to die. And therefore you will cheese this game. And so I cheesed this game, and I cheesed it hard. I cheesed the first boss. In the 3rd level, I abused the pathing of these brute guys to cheese them. I also used the game's fast movement speed to get through some of the level quickly and avoid most enemies. And I also cheesed the second boss as well. In the 4th level, here's another area where I had to cheese some brutes, and I did it a couple times. And the final boss was a little bit harder to cheese, however I was able to trick his pathing to make it hard for him to get around this object here. Now, I wanted to be known that I didn't set out wanting to cheese this game. I don't play games and think to myself, how can I break this to make it easier? But with Assault on Proxima, it almost seemed necessary to get through certain levels. And it's not like I could use a different build to make things easier. So therefore, I think it's a fault of the developer and a design flaw. However, it can be fixed easily with balancing. All the developers need to do is sit down and spend some time balancing the game depending on how many players are playing it. For a solo player, make the game balanced for a solo experience. Don't expect us to beat the game as one person when the game is clearly balanced for 4. Maybe don't have enemies spawn as quickly for solo play, and reduce the amount of health some of the bigger creatures have, especially the bosses. With a proper balance pass, the rest of the game's jank is negligible. However, I do suggest the developers take some time to polish and work on their systems. And so here are my suggestions to push this game to the next level. The game is just vastly too dark across the board. The whole game needs brightening. I would suggest a thin outline to enemies to make them pop a bit more against the darkness as well. The enemy AI is one-dimensional. They just kind of walk forward and shoot. Some of the charging enemies are fine, but with the shooting enemies, it would be cool if they took some cover behind objects or popped into other rooms and shot from doorways. Because you have this kill feed concept, you have to make the enemies feel more alive and dynamic. I would also suggest a save feature for a solo player. You don't need one for co-op, but for a solo player it just makes sense. And for God's sakes, let me pause the game when I pull up my menu. And while I talked about this already, make it obvious that the classes do different things in the selection menu, and give the classes more abilities, like the recon scanner I mentioned earlier, or the assault player has the ability to call down an orbital strike. Maybe the soldier can carry some rocket launchers or something like that, and the medic can self-revive if he's playing by himself, or revive teammates. In the third level, or the junk planet as I called it, it was far too easy to run past all the enemies and avoid them altogether. Many of them would just get stuck on the various collision in the game and lose me. I would suggest making invisible barriers so the player can't just cheese the entire level like I did here. And again, I did this due to the difficulty of the game, and if it was balanced well, I would not have done this at all. And you have to remember, especially when you're later in the level, with every death there is a very long run back with enemies respawning. I mean, here's an example of one of those run backs. I would suggest a teleporter checkpoint system that a player can unlock in later levels to assist with that run back. Think of it kind of like a Dark Souls-esque bonfire system, except for when you respawn at the ship, you step into a teleporter and it takes you to the latest teleporter that maybe you've unlocked or discovered. These are kind of my main complaints with the game, and honestly the game has more positives than negatives. It might not seem like it because I'm kind of critiquing this thing into the ground, but I don't want the viewer to walk away thinking I'm giving this game a negative review. I actually thoroughly enjoyed myself playing Assault on Proxima. I just think the game would be a lot more fun if some of these more frustrating systems were cut out of the game entirely, and the whole experience would be much more streamlined and improved upon. You have to remember, as a reviewer, it's my job to pick games apart, even games that I really enjoyed. And I am aware that this game is built by a small team and it's still very much in early access, but that means that there's time for this game to become much more fleshed out and polished. The gunplay is good, the movement is good. The base foundations of this game are good. The art style is cool, the story is basic, but it's still fun. The developers also have more plans for the game with a roadmap on their Steam page. Horde mode will be added, with an Act 2 of the game dropping in November along with the full release on Steam. They plan to add more bosses with new mechanics, new enemies, new weapons, and new explosives. I want to see more explosions like this. Honestly, stylistically, this is one of the coolest explosions I've seen in a long time, and it shows the team's ability to create something really badass. So going back to the roadmap, I probably should have read this before I started writing my script, but it's really cool to see that the developer is already aware of a lot of their shortcomings. I mean, many of the things that I've already suggested improvement for are already on their list. So folks, if you're looking for something different to try, I would suggest checking this one out. For a $9.99 price point, it's not exactly a huge commitment. I for one will be eager to come back and see if they're able to make the game feel more dynamic, balanced, and not so dark in the coming updates. They are targeting a November release, and they haven't released any patches since I played this game for the review. They do have a long ways to go, in my opinion, to really polish this game to bring it to the next level. But I'm gonna keep an eye on it, and we'll just see what happens. If you enjoyed this review, please let me know in the comments below. If you tried Assault on Proxima or feel like you may check it out, also let me know. And I feel like I'm obligated to ask you to like and subscribe, but honestly, I just appreciate you hanging out regardless. As always, I'm SaltyOctopus, and I will see you next time.